I am Kristina Herb. This is my husband, Herb. We are co-founders of Vibrant Family Education and also the co-hosts of Bringing Education Home, a podcast that you can find on all your platforms. And really, we are just a company that looks to help families grow, develop. We are looking to help them change the education of their children so that it is a good fit for them. And that usually means homeschool because of the way things are right now. So many parents are like, it's time to do something different, and we're here to help and support them.
And that's the in the box answer. And the more aggressive out of the box answer is Kristina was this 27-year teacher, and we saw the problems developing through the education system. And over the years, she lost her passion and she got out because of the problems in the school system. And we didn't think that they could be fixed from the teachers, from the top down. So we decided to go out and try and start something new. So we help people take their children out of school. We coach them through the process. We give them the confidence to do it. We show them that they are smart enough, that they are good enough, that they are the best teachers for their children, and that our education system is so broke right now that the best option right now really is to be homeschooling or to find an alternate school system to get out of that and to start,
Helping
your kids love how to learn and become lifetime learners.
There you go.
So that they start bringing more stuff to society instead of taking from.
I know for many parents that, and especially you guys, because you guys are both helping people to do this, is that kids are so precious, kids are so innocent, kids are like the gems of the world, right? And I think even though people who don't have children, they're still protective in a way of kids. So how did the both of you decide that this is something that you wanted to do together?
Well, that is really, really interesting because I have, as a teacher, I've always had my love of learning. I've always wanted to teach. And whenever the last couple of years in the classroom weren't going like I wanted to, I couldn't reach the parents the way I wanted to. I was actually in an online school, and I was actually having more contact with the parents than when I was in the classroom. And I realized that I could actually help coach these parents and help make a difference to their child more immediately, more impactfully. So I knew I had to leave the classroom, leave the school, and become a coach and be on the front lines.
And the togetherness part of that question, that one is a lot easier. We've always been together. We met in college, and we've pretty much been inseparable. When we both got out of college and got jobs, we also got into entrepreneurship, and we built a few businesses together. Unfortunately, I had a tumble snowboarding. I hurt myself pretty bad. Unfortunately, I had suffered a traumatic brain injury that went undiagnosed because I hurt everything else, and kind of stuff crumbled. So I was in this recovery phase and lost my business and was starting to build up, and COVID hit, and she was doing this online thing. And it just became really apparent that the school system was broke and we needed a new path forward. So we took a lot of the things that we knew that we've been talking about through the years, and we started the school system. And we're doing it together because we just have always done things together. We work really well together.
Plus, I'm the education side and he's the creative entrepreneur side. So we know how to reach people better that way.
It's like a match made in heaven. You're not only your marriage, but this actual business arrangement as well. Mm-hmm. When you two decided that this is what you want to do, you know what you want to deliver to the parents and the children, and it came from a place of passion, a place of love, also a place of safety, because as you mentioned, there's some things that, Kristina, you didn't necessarily agree with that was happening in the schools, and then Herb, you're like, yeah, this is completely wrong. Let's fix this now because someone has to do it, right? And someone has to start that journey. When you look back on when you first started doing this, how far and how proud are you of your journey from when you first started till today?
I'm pretty proud of the journey. I'm first to admit that I am not where I wanted to be. I was really hoping that we would have a little bit more reach by now, that we would have more impact by now. But looking back on the impact we've had, people say even just one life or one family can make a big difference. So I'm proud of that fact that I have made a difference in at least some lives already.
And we also, again, run into one of the biggest entrepreneurial traps or problems that people have is we are really good at the education part, at the coaching part, at the building the families, but the getting the message out to the people who need to hear it, the marketing aspect of it, the business aspect of it,
Tougher.
you not only have to be good at what you're good at, you also have to learn how to be good at a whole lot of stuff that doesn't have to do with your actual profession. And so the growth in that area, so that we can actually start focusing on our passions and our strengths, this is where the struggle lies, in the stuff that's not actually what we do, but we have to do to make it work.
Gone are the days you're going to stand on the corner yelling at the top of your lungs, save your children from the crazy government, right?
Right.
I remember seeing that guy in here in Toronto, Canada. There's this man. He stands in front of this mall, and he has this big sign, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, Jesus is coming, protect your children, right? Like, I think those days are gone, but you still need, I guess, that type of energy where you're like, I don't care how people view me. I don't care what people may say, the naysayers or the haters, as they call them. I know that my message is important because it's important to me. And I truly believe it's important to everyone else. Because when I look at when I was in the education system, there are so many things I didn't like. And I was trying to understand, because I realized this probably when I was 16, 17. I would go to my teachers and my teachers would tell me certain things. And then I'll ask them, okay, but why is it this way? Why can't it just be about the education? You do your best and you go from there. Why is it everything else that really doesn't have a bearing on what's in the textbook, what's the knowledge, math, English, science, whatever the case is? For the two of you, when did you start noticing the shift in the schools? And how did that make you feel when you started to see it and you're like, whoa, what's going on here?
So for me, it was about 10 years ago. So you think about my 27-year career, I was in the, into my career quite a ways, and things have been going along pretty well. And then there were certain laws that were passed in the United States and things started shifting, and all of a sudden new rules were implemented and the money shifted around in different ways, things like that. And I just really kept seeing a change, but like, wait a second, instead of me being able to teach the way I know I can and do to help my students the best, now all of a sudden I'm under these policies. I have to be on this page of this book on this day. I have to be at this class. I have to now add this part to the curriculum that I've never had to teach before. And when all of that stuff started adding up, it was a major red flag. It's like, wait a second, this is not the school, it's not the teaching profession. My dream job basically turned into a nightmare because of all the things that happened and all the changes, unfortunately, in society with families, education, administration, all of that. Yeah.
And I'm going to go very conservative talk at the moment, because there were a lot of policy changes that happened as well. And I'm going to say a lot of Democrat policies that are being implemented right now that are really negatively affecting. One of the, and it's weird because they have really great sounding names, but as soon as they have a great sounding name, if you just look into it, it's like completely wrong. So like No Child Left Behind. That was a big one. As soon as No Child got left behind, that means that the lower kids had to be brought up. And so they sacrificed the smarter kids and the mid kids, and they started putting like the last couple of years, they started putting the problem kids in the mainstream classrooms. So these kids who would have violent outbreaks, instead of taking that kid out, they would like empty the classroom, and all the kids who were learning, who were doing stuff, were moved out of the classroom. So these programs, and then there's another really big one right now, is they're forcing lower income housing into middle suburban neighborhoods. So people choose to move to a neighborhood that fits their education, that fits their socioeconomic status, and they end up with schools that fit that status. But then they force lower income people into that, and those people have a different kind of mindset. They come into the school, and I'm going to be kind of rude here, but I call those people takers, because they're given everything and they don't understand necessarily the value of the stuff that they work for. So they go to the school where everybody is working and they give to that school, and then a low income takers come in and they don't give back to the school. The parents don't show up at the school. There's not the community impact, because they don't have that sense of responsibility from their working, from their contributing. And so that brings the schools down. So all of these things kind of combined are slowly taking the schools apart. And then there's the propaganda, the socioeconomic programming that the schools are talking about now. So instead of reading, writing, and arithmetic, they're talking about social justice and pronouns and what is sex. And it's like, these things don't need to be taught in schools. That needs to be something that's taught at home. So the school actual work isn't necessarily being there anymore. So all of these problems, I mean, they've just been kind of rolling uphill and coming along, and people are just so brainwashed into the propaganda after all these years that they think that that's normal now, and so they don't want to take their kids out of school, because then they're going to miss all of that programming.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because here in Canada, that's a big issue. We've had a number of protests over the last, I want to say, 2 years in regards to everything that you just said, Herb. And I'm going to add to that and say that there's a time when I was growing up, I'm in my 30s, so I'm not even that far removed from school. And you couldn't talk outside of sex health, like be healthy with your partner, things of that nature. A lot of the things that they're sharing now, if you were to talk about that when I was in school, you would be considered the P word, if you know what I mean, right? You would be accused of a number of things. And now I read an article where they want to introduce sexual material into the schools. I know it may be different in the States, because
it's already
you guys are usually, you guys are usually a little farther ahead, because you guys have your red and blue states. We don't have that division yet in Canada. So they wanted to do that. And I know a lot of parents were protesting it, because they felt, what they were explaining was, I don't mind my children having that conversation, but allow me to have it with my children when I feel that it's appropriate to have it with their children. And it's kind of taken that away from them. And another aspect that you mentioned as well is, there are sometimes, I think, people forget that the generation that I'm a part of and the one that's coming up after me, they're growing up where social justice is a rite of passage in a way, right? Because it's in the schools, once they graduate, they try to bring it into the corporate world, and you see it, right? And that is something I struggle with in school, because I would go to my teachers and say, hey, this is how I'm performing, but the class is being disrupted because there's other people who necessarily aren't performing, whereas previously they would be in a different section, for lack of a better word, right? But now everyone's into one, because as you mentioned, no child gets left behind. So those who are performing are like, sometimes, what's the point? Because in Canada, one, every child passes. You can't fail, or you're not allowed to fail. Two, it kind of defeats the purpose of the report cards, because, well, ultimately there isn't a grading system. It's just, well, Kristina did well today because she can color her book well, and Herb did well because, he's able to sit still, because boys can't keep still, right?
And he learned to behave, and he didn't stand out, and he was a good little citizen who didn't speak out, who didn't do anything, and he just made it through the day without making any waves. Those are the people who do best in school, and that's what our government is looking for, is just these little sheep that go through the gates and don't press any buttons. And And that isn't necessarily healthy right now. We need people to wake up and to save our planet. Every problem, we need this collective we need the people to rise to their best, because there's so many problems, and the government's not going to solve them. The people are. The government is supposed to give the problems to the people, and the people are supposed to rise to solve them. And then the government goes and figures out what the problems are and says, hey, this is what the problem is. Society, let's come up with a role for that. And instead they're like dumbing us down. They're taking away that responsibility. They're taking all of that away from us and we're saying, we'll fix it. You just get back into your lines. You just do your little stuff and we'll fix all your problems. And that's not the way, at least America was designed to be. This is a country of citizens, and the citizens are supposed to rise and fix the problems, and the government is just kind of supposed to show and discover where those are. So we, as responsible citizens, can actually rise up and fix the things that need fixing.
How can we get back that power to rise up and fix what many of us believe is broken?
For us, it starts with the family. It starts with the kids, which is why we're doing what we're doing. It's time for parents to really take charge of their child's education and really take charge of their family life and build that family, keep that family strong. Yes, get help if you need help. If you're weak in an area, get help. That's why there's so many coaches around. But take control of your family, take control of your children's education, and instill those family values that unfortunately have been lost, and let's keep building them back in, and then build that into the communities.
Yeah, and there's the theory that you can't control an educated population. And so that's one of the reasons that the dumbing down of America is happening. They don't teach our Constitution, they don't teach our laws, they don't teach our rights. Instead, they push the entitlements, and they push, I should have this. And so people think, I should get this, instead of, hey, this is my responsibility for the country. So we need to go back to teaching responsibility, teaching personal responsibility, teaching stewardship, and that is no longer a principle that's taught in our school. So we need to actually go back to more conservative principles of personal responsibility, personal growth, becoming the best person you can be, instead of farming that off and letting other people take care of you. You need to grow and take care of yourself.
That's interesting that you mentioned, because here in Canada, the majority of the people, numbers wise, vote conservatively here in Canada. Right. So in America, you guys have states, we have provinces. So the majority of the provinces are conservative, because the majority of the people that vote are conservative. Last time I checked the numbers in America, because the blue states, for those who don't know, those Democratic states, because those states have such a vast number of people, it appears that the majority of the people vote Democratic, not conservative, right?
Really, really more interesting is there aren't any blue states in the United States. There are blue cities. If you look, even Oregon, which is like one of the bluest states there is, okay? It's Portland, Salem, and Eugene is blue. And the whole rest of the state, all the counties are red, deep red. It's just that the power centers where the most people are, and coincidentally, where the votes are counted, that is where the power actually lies. So Oregon, even though it's considered a blue state, almost every county in Oregon is actually conservative and red. It's just that where the power is held and where the densest populations of people are, it actually outranks. So, and that happens in California. California, there are like 90% of the counties are red. It's just the major population centers control the state.
Is that what you were going to say about Canada too? Is it kind of like that, the population?
Yes. Where it's a little bit different. So, because America has a popular vote, but we still have like the majority, right? And then we have seats and things like that. And that reminded me of what he said, because someone gave me the example for Illinois, because Illinois is, many of the smaller counties are red, but like the bigger ones, Chicago, so on and so forth, they're blue. And perfect example of California. California has so many people, right? Because the big cities in that state vote blue. But if you look at the counties and smaller ones, it is red, right? I think there's a few states that maybe are the exception to that. I think like New York, maybe. But like overall, you're absolutely right. There's more people, but in Canada, the way it's structured is that if you show up, like for example, in the where I live, there's no Democratic Party. Like they have so few votes they don't even exist. Right? So, but if you go to other places, like the two corners of Canada are very democratic, where the center of it is would be considered red. And I think that plays a part on how you view the school system because you're looking at it as okay, family oriented, religion oriented, and your personal accountability. Whereas some other people may feel that, okay, if I vote the other way, you may feel that, okay, more of a unit. How can I get programs and things of that nature? So when we're putting it to the schools, if you were to say, okay, Trent, this is what we need to do, this is how we can do it, what would be the plan to get us back on track to that type of journey?
We would still have to dismantle, at least the way it's set up in Oregon, we would still have to like dismantle a major part of the system, because in Oregon, the way the school system is set up is that we have like 8 huge districts throughout the whole state. There's not a whole bunch of districts. And then there's little itty bitty ones in the, the far reaches of the farming and the ranching land and things like that. But so like in 1994, they actually passed a law that said that a school that didn't have a high school had to merge with a school district that did. I lived in this adorable, wonderful little school district that was exactly what we talked about. They had the families, they had the values, they had the community backing, they had the programs that benefited the kids who needed what they needed.
And it was 3 elementary schools. Two. It was 2 elementary schools. It was its own district. The West Union Elementary School District was one of the oldest school districts on the West Coast.
It's school district number 1 in Oregon.
School district number 1 in Oregon. Okay. And they forced this school district to merge into the Hillsborough school district because they had a high school, and it completely eroded the support base for the school system. They came in and they took the money that the parent teacher association and the computers that they had bought from the school, and they shipped it off to the high school because the high school needed the equipment more, because this school had such a wonderful parent and support group. That when they were forced into the school district, the other school district came and basically raped the school.
So to answer your question, we would have to reverse those kinds of laws and reverse those things. So the school districts get smaller again, and the schools and the communities get the
communities get control back of their school district, so that you can have, again, the parents and the community deciding how the schools work instead of, again, because it's parallel of the school. So like way over here is a group of people deciding what's going on over here. Like way over in Portland, people are deciding what's going on over in Eastern Oregon. So, it's the same kind of scenario. We need to get back to a more decentralized kind of a process.
For those who are joining us on YouTube, social media, and my website, please stay tuned for more incredible interviews like the one we have with Kristina and Herb, and we will be back for more. So stay tuned, everyone.